I think we can get started. We are all here, so let's kick off our conversation. We have a good half an hour together. So the panel today is focused on B2B SaaS and what is the opportunity ahead of us. I will just take a little time to introduce the panel. So myself, I'm Roberto Croci. I'm Managing Director here in Dubai for Microsoft for Startups, looking after Middle East and Africa. So I have a background in tech. I spent a long time with Google. Now building the team and the strategy and execution here in the region for Microsoft to develop the startup ecosystem here. And today we have great speakers and panelists here with us, all with a background around B2B, B2B SaaS. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So maybe I will start just calling out each one of you for a quick introduction. And if you can, introduce yourself, what your startup do or what you do, and so that we can then get into the conversation. So maybe let's start from Reem Khouri, co-founder and CEO at Whyise. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, how are you? So my name is Reem Khouri. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Whyise. Whyise is an impact data management and analytics solution. And basically, our goal is to make data related to impact and sustainability available and actionable to organizations. I feel a bit like an imposter because my background is more on impact and sustainability and policy. And the past 2 years have been the most vertical learning curve on how to create a product and technology and SaaS model. So bear with me on that one.
Thank you, Reem. We love working with startups that are looking into impact and sustainability. So definitely, you're not an imposter, and your contribution actually is very well welcomed. Carolin-Carmen, you are CEO and co-founder at FERO.Ai. If you want to quickly introduce yourself. Carolin, can you hear me?
Audio issues.
Oh yeah, well, okay. Yeah.
I can just not hear Roberto. Okay, perfect. I'll do a quick introduction. So I'm Carolin from FERO, and I'm the COO and co-founder. We have the world's first intelligent virtual agent for freight and logistics. So we solve for doing more in less time with less resources. So by using an intelligent virtual agent, it's a type of Siri that automates and optimizes logistic processes for you. So imagine it like a paradigm shift between a calculator and Excel sheet, just to make it easy as comparison. We're 2 years old. We have sold our product. We've got a couple of blue chip clients such as DSV Palapina, quite a few regional players as well, such as Emirates Logistics, and I'm very excited to be on the SaaS panel.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Carolin. Moving on to Ahmad Sadeddin, you are Director of Product Management at Coupa. A quick intro from your side.
Thank you, Roberto. My name is Ahmad. I'm a Director of Product at Coupa, like Roberto said. I've been with the company now for 4 years. Which is a very long time for an entrepreneur. I had a startup called Riskapy, and we got acquired by Coupa back in 2017. So I joined through the acquisition and have stuck with the company because we work on very interesting problems, and I love problem solving. So I work in the payment space now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ahmad. And last but not least, of course, Kareem El Sawy, founding general partner at Arrowroot Capital. Hi, Kareem. A few words from you.
Yes, nice to meet you all, and thanks so much for having me. As Roberto mentioned, I'm a founding partner of Arrowroot Capital. We're a B2B SaaS-focused growth equity firm, global firm focused mostly on North America, but Europe as well, and have looked at the Middle East. We have about 500 under management, writing $10 to $40 million checks, about 20 companies in the portfolio, and we focus at the growth stage. We're not totally early venture, focused on kind of the Series B-ish, teenage software stage, if you will.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kareem. So this is a great panel because, we have a representation, with Carolin and Reem, based here in the MENA region, and you, Kareem, and Ahmad, you're based in the Silicon Valley in the US. So it's going to be a nice conversation to share, learnings and experiences across these regions. So let's kick it off. So I would start with a question to all. If we look back at 2020, it has been an incredible year, right, with all what happened. And 2021 looks set to continue the general trend of disruption. We at Microsoft, we have seen, and Satya, probably our CEO, summarized it very well, right? So in 2 months, last year, we saw 2 years of digital transformation, which is pretty impressive. From your perspective, how do you think that the pandemic, COVID, has affected the global B2B SaaS space? And what changes have you seen, for Carolin and Reem in the MENA region, and for Ahmad and Kareem in the US, or from a global perspective? Maybe is the question open to also, would start from Reem, same order we went for the introduction, so it's clear for everyone.
Of course, yeah. So actually, I feel that the pandemic kind of made the business case for us at Whyise, because we've actually seen that sustainability is a prerequisite for resilience. The data shows that actually funds that have a sustainable approach outperform the traditional funds. We've seen that companies that had a stakeholder-based approach performed much better. So there was some kind of a business case, even from an impact and sustainability point of view, that you as an organization need to think about how you engage with your stakeholders, and not just the pandemic, but things like Black Lives Matter. A lot of the social movements that are happening around showed that actually companies have a role to play in the well-being of all of their stakeholders, not just their shareholders. And the pandemic really highlighted that. So it made the business case for Whyise as an impact data management analytics software solution. At the same time, one of our main challenges working with clients is the lack of data and the lack of digital infrastructure. And I think that the pandemic also made that transformation happen much faster for organizations, whether in the region or globally. That's not to say, by the way, that the sales cycle did not get longer. It actually, the sales cycle became longer. I think this year we're going to continue to see an economic slowdown. But I do believe that the solutions that we're providing for organizations are not just highlighting are not just solving a problem of digital transformation and creating that data infrastructure that they need from an impact point of view, but also the stakeholder engagement and really seeing where the money is going. And so I think that I don't want to say the pandemic it made the business case for us. I never say that this pandemic has been a blessing in any way or shape or form. I don't think it has. I think it has done a lot of damage. But I think it's also, it was a wake-up call for organizations and individuals alike to go back and reflect on, why am I doing what I'm doing? What kind of value am I adding? How can I become more efficient and more resilient? And to us, sustainability and making decisions based on evidence is at the heart of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Reem. Carolin, from your perspective, FERO is in the logistics space, right? So pandemic has been hit hard on that. The supply chain at large have been affected. What's your point of view? How the B2B SaaS you have seen impacted, and specifically also in the MENA region?
Yeah, I definitely think when it comes to adoption, that we've seen type of trends, right? The one type of trend for the very digitally savvy client, that they're very keen on experimenting with new solutions, with optimizing on like using our intelligent virtual agent, and really the automation part, and understanding the detailed functionalities of it and the features. And then there's the less digitally savvy client. I think they were also keen, but I would say it took some adjustment in the sales process in order to have the customers really understand what we solve for them. So they understood that they have an issue, and they understood that scaling up and down is quite important for them, particularly in the pandemic where resources might be scarce. They understand the complexities of the different pieces that come together and the importance of the logistics sector with all the moving parts. When it comes to modes of transport, hub and spoke, all these pieces. Yet again, the solution we have provided, that took a bit more time to kind of help on the hand-holding when it comes to adoption. So the language change was key. But then having said that, I was listening to a conversation earlier with the Facebook gentleman from the MENA region. And, being aware, so our product integrates with WhatsApp, like it's a conversational SaaS product. So there's 127 million WhatsApp messages on business accounts, and the growth is 40%. So that, of course, really helps for our adoption as well, because we, not only use it for the corporates, but we actually also use it for, that might be the brokers, the transporters, anyone in the whole ecosystem.
Awesome. Very interesting, Caroline. Thanks for sharing. Ahmad, moving over to you, your point of view on, how, the whole pandemic affected the B2B SaaS from a global perspective.
Yeah, maybe I'll give a little bit of perspective of how I see it, and this is my view solely. I think it's accelerated a lot of things that, for certain customers that were thinking this is a year or two away, it accelerated things for them in terms of buying decisions. And just to share some perspective, 60% of all B2B payments are made through a physical check in the US. For a lot of people abroad, that's shocking, right? And so we offer a digital checks product at Coupa. And so we started getting a lot of customers saying, hey, we can't go into the office to print checks. Hey, we can't, send physical checks because of COVID. We don't want to do these. Can we move to more modern ways of moving money, of paying suppliers and paying employees, right? So we really saw a lot of people gravitate towards that, especially in this. And you started to see a lot of customers in your late majority and laggard type of, customers start to really move quickly into adopting newer technologies quicker. I think also the byproduct of this is a lot of technology fatigue. And I think the next startups that we're going to start to see really disrupt the market are the ones that the technology is there but never felt, right? Our CEO has a really great saying, no UI is the best UI, right? And so where the technology can start to take a lot of the lifting on behalf of people and start to free them from, having to interact with the technology, I think that's where we're going to start to see and I think there is a lot of fatigue with Zoom, with being, having to chat over Slack all the time, with not being able to whiteboard in person. And so I'd like to see where technology starts to get out of the way and it's not felt anymore.
That's awesome. I have an analogy. Being an Italian, I like some soccer or football, as you want to call it. And we have a say that when you have a football match and the main character becomes the referee, there's something wrong, right? Because the main characters should be the players. Same with technology. Technology is the means to an end, but I've been with Google many times. And, what was your experience the first time you used Google and years after you have been using Google? It's the same product market fit done, but it's behind, the complexity is behind. So great point, Ahmad. What's your point of view, moving to Kareem, what's your point of view? And also, Kareem, as a venture investor, that you're also focusing on B2B startups at growth stages, you mentioned before as well. Where do you think also the largest untapped opportunities are in this space, either by industry, geography? What's your point of view?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I just want to echo the rest of the panel that we saw a similar dynamic with our company's acceleration of digital transformation. Our portfolio value actually went up, over the last year, and maybe some short-term headwinds, but then long-term big tailwinds. And I think this is the year that you'll see that really take off. In terms of opportunities, I think probably the larger platforms are done, more or less, kind of the Salesforce, ServiceNow, Marketo's, Twilios of the world, pretty well covered, Zoom for that matter. And then you're finding nichier companies, niches within niches. And it's going to be problematic for venture investors because a lot of them are looking for $5 billion exits and huge TAMs when most of them are $1 billion TAMs. So you're going to find these workhorse companies really take over, just growing very steadily, strong unit economics, very cash flow efficient. So we're seeing that in North America already. We're seeing it in Europe. I think that emerging markets, very untapped, way behind still, which is just kind of a product of business and just ability to make decisions quicker and kind of have 50 SaaS products that your company uses daily, like we do here. So we're still looking at that market in a new way, but we can see ourselves getting pulled out, geographically.
Very interesting. I was talking right today with a fintech founder from Pakistan, and if you stop and think about it, you mentioned emerging markets. Pakistan is a market with 200 million people, but the economy is still predominantly cash based. Imagine the country started digitization process. So imagine the opportunity, the untapped opportunity there when it comes to even starting with digital payments, and then it's going to be very interesting in the coming years. Thank you guys for this round of introductions and the first question. So let's go a little bit deeper now. So Reem, I turn to you. You mentioned before Whyise focusing on impact analytics, right? What is your general appetite to work with relatively young and disruptive technology companies? And what are some of the challenges that you face in your team face here?
That's a tricky question. So there's a question in the chat that talks about traditional businesses, right? That are actually and our clients are typical, a lot of them are foundations and NGOs, and a lot of them are government entities. And so you don't get more traditional than government. I think the way I would segment is we have two types of clients. There is a type that doesn't care where we're based, how old we are. They care about the value that we're going to be adding. They care that our solution was driven by their needs. They care that we are actually providing them with data that is actionable and insightful, that they're starting to see, that they're starting to be able to make decisions based on that. And what drives them is impact, right? And so if they're driven truly by impact, and if they're driven by wanting to understand what is it that they do that drives change, then they will do it. Then there's another group, and I would say they're more interested in a checklist. They're more interested in compliance. They're more interested in reporting to donors or to funders. And this is where it becomes trickier, right? Because it's not about, they're less likely to do the heavy lifting that's needed or to build the infrastructure for the data the way it's supposed to be, because it's more about literally compliance and a checklist. And in that case, we try to highlight for them the potential and the opportunity. And it's also efficiency, right? Because when you design better, when you have better impact, the return on every dollar that's spent is exponentially bigger and better. And so we try to find that opportunity for them. But to answer also part of the question is, we actually, that was a big debate at the beginning, right? So if, we did a pipeline analysis to see why clients are dropping or not converting, a big part of it was lack of readiness. And so we addressed that by actually incorporating, creating a data strategy for them and helping them set up their digital infrastructure as part of our solution. But we also created an alliance network of partners that we work with, so that they can go through a pipeline of other people before they're ready to actually work with us, and that proved to be extremely helpful. Of course, there are people who wouldn't want necessarily, they'd say, "Who are you?" and you're only 2 years old, and that always happens. And the way we actually addressed that was we went to people we wanted to have on our client list in the very early days and said, we're going to give you a free account. Just, give us the data. And and now they are actually partners, clients. We have their logos on our platform, and that's how it's, at the beginning we had to do that.
Interesting. Thank you, Reem. It's always great to see, how startups founders, you focus on listening to customers, and then you mentioned also partnerships, which is pretty awesome. If we shift our focus to logistics as an industry, Carolin, FERO has developed the first, allow me to say, Siri Alexa for logistics. What are we seeing in terms of adoption trends and hurdles for a solution like this, and how can B2B startups manage large-scale clients more effectively?
Yeah, let me maybe start with the hurdles, which is going to lead me to the first part of the question. I think, one of the challenges when you're in the SaaS environment, and that's not only related to the logistics industry, but also is really having your clients know how to phrase the problem statement, particularly when you come up with new solutions. Keeping in mind only 6% of companies have an AI strategy. So that also means that only 6% have actively thought about the positive impact that new solutions can bring to them. And I think that's particularly strong in the logistics industry as well. So we tackle that in a way where we actually, in the sales cycle already, work on an AI strategy together with our clients. That brings down the sales cycle significantly in the time as well. So that works in two ways. So for that, we use a playbook. We discover the client's pain points, and then also we actually share how AI can positively impact it, and hence kind of help with the adoption as well, and also internally for their stakeholders to kind of bring them along all the way. Another thing I think what's very important is really to kind of speak the language what the customers speak as well, and that also helps on the adoption. Versus going the tech route and speaking very technical language, try to understand them and connect with them, and connect on not the highly complex solution that you're selling, but really connect on the business outcomes that business leaders can relate to. And we feel there's, in the logistics industry, because our solution is very advanced, we definitely have to focus on that, what helps us for the adoption.
Awesome. Yeah, this is great. And then I shift then to Ahmad, because and both Carolin and Reem touch base on that, but there is this perception that large-scale companies, especially the non-tech ones, are more resistant to change. But what we see is Coupa, for example, you do something that is essential for all companies because you minimize costs. So what advice can you give B2B entrepreneurs on how best to pitch their solutions to corporate clients?
It's a very good question. And to be honest, I'm still figuring it out. It really deals with, and when I think about this, it's a startup picks its customers more than a customer picks the startup. And it's really important as a founder to really declare which market you're going after and where do they fall. And maybe I'm a broken record, the diffusion of innovation curve. Like, who are the innovators who are going to go buy your early, broken product that is duct taped together and is willing to take that risk? And answering that question is more important than actually going to sell, because once you have that, you should be laser focused on executing, right? If you are halfway in your journey now, you have to think about who are my early adopters and what do they need. And across this journey as a B2B startup, you think, well, if I'm going to go after a large corporation, they might care about my ISO certifications, penetration testing. They're going to ask about compliance requirements. They're going to ask about like a host of things which a small 5, 10, 20 person startup can't afford to pursue, right? So it's really about how do you leverage your size as a small startup with being agile and nimble and trying to sell to a company that's willing to take the risk and to truly partner with you. I think early on, you're not selling, you're partnering. And even throughout the entire sales conversation, maybe even to much later stages, you need to find customers who are willing to partner with you on your product because they believe in the founding team and they believe in what you're solving for them. And then when you start to talk about much larger companies, there's actually a question I was typing up a little bit for an answer for. It really comes around, if you're doing something disruptive and new, it's about educating multi-party stakeholders in large organizations, right? Spending the time to educate them on their own problems. It's a negotiation. You have to understand their positions and their interests and what problems do they have and why are they manifesting these problems and how are they currently solving these problems. And I'll give you an example. I'm thinking about a startup idea, and I posted a question on Reddit for this domain space, and people just started pouring their answers. This is a problem and we use this. This isn't a problem for us because we do that. This is a problem for us. We don't know how to solve. And so some people don't know their problems, or some people know their problems and don't know how to solve them. So multi-stakeholder education and spending time with different parties and knowing who is, who is an advocate in this company, who is a blocker, why are they an advocate, why are they a blocker, and how do you leverage and work with them to getting your solution in place is really critical. And I want to say, like, really focus on the value points that they want. Because at the end of the day, when you come to renewal, if they didn't see any value with what you're doing, the sale failed. Yeah, you might have given the guy commission for your sales guy. He thought this was a cool sale. But at the end of the day, success only happens when the customer is able to renew and to continue to even advocate about your product.
Yeah,
those are my couple of cents about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ahmad. So if I summarize, I mean, what you guys, Reem, Carolin, Ahmad, you share some of the scaling challenges that B2B startups are facing. So Kareem, from your perspective as an investor, so do you see any other challenges that startups in your portfolio have been facing? And what are some of the solutions that can help address this and unlock the dollar value of this space?
Yeah, no, great question, a tricky question. I think a lot of our companies, a lot of the prospective deals we look at, a lot of companies will have the wrong customer base and have attacked the wrong base, and they're stuck with them. So then they have a high churn base. Maybe they're too service oriented, asking too much for custom product. And all of a sudden your cash burn accelerates, your venture investors get frustrated, and then they ask you to pivot. And by that time, it's probably too late. And so I think just growing at a good pace, very slow, methodical, find your match from a customer standpoint. Are we going for blue chip Fortune 500 businesses, or are we going SMB? If we're going SMB, do we have the right financial backers for that? Because it's a much kind of riskier approach. And just figure out, are you that workhorse software company that is very resilient, as we were saying earlier, and that can take some hits? Or are we that aspiring unicorn that is going to burn a lot of money, make some bad decisions, but fight through it? And I think a lot of companies choose the wrong path initially.
Yeah. Just conscious of time, we have a couple of minutes left before wrapping up the session. So I would ask each one of you, to answer, say in 30 seconds each maximum, one piece of advice that you would give to a B2B SaaS entrepreneur, and maybe even to corporates thinking of working with them. Maybe starting reverse order now from Kareem. Kareem?
Yeah, I think there's a term that we like a lot that's growing prominence, is product-led growth, and just be very product-oriented. And this, a lot of review sites, it's very hard to hide a bad product, and your salesmanship is a commodity, and don't rely on it. Really rely on your product, and that'll save the day.
Awesome. Thank you, Kareem. Ahmad?
I like the saying in product I'm a product manager, so I'll echo Kareem and what he's saying. But also, I always think you need to think mindfully and execute maniacally against what you decide to do, and definitely have unwavering focus in what you do. I have seen, having gone through a number of acquisitions and having done product management for some time, failures usually come from spreading yourself too thin and being overwhelmed by the opportunity in front of you. And I see a lot of startups are like, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. And they do everything but nothing, right? And so an unwavering commitment to a vision and a customer, and having really sharp focus and thinking mindfully and maniacally executing against it. Even if it's the wrong decision, smart people will pivot. Even if it was the wrong market, even if it was the wrong product, even if it was the wrong, target customer, you will correct, but you will actually you'll waste less time doing it. and you'll move quicker.
Thank you, Ahmad. Carolin?
Yeah, I would say, from an innovator's perspective, as we all are here, right? So we feel like we're ahead of the curve, but really still taking time to listen to the customer and discover together and still continue to take that input versus kind of like being too strong on the solution. That first of all helps to kind of bring out new features, but also, be close to what is actually the product market fit. As a piece of advice.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. Reem, last but not least, your piece of advice.
I'll make it very short. I would say the team, right? Pick your team very, very carefully. And for corporations or organizations, the advice is make a percentage of your procurement go to startups, and you would have aligned with an SDG number 8 and 10, and so you're good to go. So please do so.
That's awesome, Reem. And you give me an assist to wrap up this session. And thank you guys, first of all, for your insights. It was a short but insightful session. So for the audience, you have the names and the contacts. So feel free to reach out to each one of the panelists today. At Microsoft for Startups, we feel blessed because our sweet spot is working with B2B SaaS startups. Because we just don't help with the product side, technology side, but also on the go-to-market, getting in front of corporates. So this whole co-creation between corporates and startups is a space where we are doing a lot of things, and we are open for feedback. So definitely, we would love to keep the conversation going beyond the summit. But it has been a pleasure to share these 30 minutes with you guys. So thank you so much, Reem, Caroline, Ahmad, and Kareem. Thank you guys and all the audience here for attending the session, and looking forward to your feedbacks going on. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Bye.
Bye-bye.